Get a little patriotic today on Hands On.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
It's back to basics on this 10th anniversary series of Hands On. Each show has a basic theme like patterns or letters, plus a basic how-to lesson on your favorite craft or craft material, like scrapbooking or clay or even wood. Each show also includes another basic, a painting lesson, from choosing paint to preparing your surface. At the end of the next 13 shows, you'll know everything about painting and be on your way to becoming an artist. So on each show, you can look forward to a basic theme, lots of projects, each with 5 steps and 5 ingredients. Keep basic supplies like scissors, markers, toothpicks, and rulers on hand. Remember, be creative and get back to basics with Hands On. Patriotism is always in style, and today on Hands On, we look at some national symbols and how they became a symbol. First up, it's the American eagle in a very unique way to tie-dye. Our basic lesson is all about how to work with Styrofoam. Then it's lesson 11 with Prudy as we learn how to transfer patterns. Next, it's a feature project using Styrofoam. Coincidentally, we chose the elephant, a symbol of one of our political parties. Last up, it's a turkey and eagle favor and an interesting story about our national bird. So let's raise the flag on today's program. The bald eagle was chosen as our national symbol because of its great strength, long life, and because it's only found on this continent. We're making a t-shirt today that has the look of batik, but we're not actually using wax. Let me show you what we've used. First, we have a spray bottle with cool water. We're using cold water dye. We're using white glue. We have masking tape, a hanger, and of course a t-shirt in your size. The pattern you can find on our website. Now the first thing we've done is we've protected our work surface. We've taken a garbage bag and opened it out and used our masking tape to put down. Then we've printed out this pattern, or you could use your own, and we're going to slip it inside the shirt. And you'll see, because we're using a white t-shirt, you can actually see the shirt or see the design right through. Now we're going to use our top of our our glue as our design. So I'm going to color in any of the places that I want to stay white. So I'm going to go right along. As you can see, I'm just following the line of the pattern. And I'm going to fill that entire area in. See, I've got a little bit here, but I'm going to fill this all in. So I'm just using the tip as my paintbrush. I'm going to fill in the wings. And because I'm doing this on camera, I'm going to go a little quicker. You're going to spend as much time as it takes to fill in that entire shape. Then I'm going to go around the head. Remember, anything that I want to stay white or not take the dye, I'm going to fill in. So if I just wanted to do the outline, I would only do the outline. If I want the entire section to stay white, then I would do the whole section. So I'd go along and do all the pieces. Now that paper stays in. I'm going to let that dry, then I'd go back and do some on the back as well. I'm also going to add some dots, just as a little bit more design on the shirt. Now I've got one where I've added the glue all the way along. Let me pull that up so you can see what it looks like. Now you can see all of this is going to stay white. Now you can pull the paper out at this point. It's okay that the paper is going to stick a little because that's glue. When you do your final step, it's all going to come out. So you would just tear that pattern out. Okay, now we're ready to dye, but before we dye, we're going to put it on a hanger. It's easiest to do this either outdoors, or when it's hanging up, or over a protected surface like we have here. Slip my hanger in. First thing I want to do is to spray the top with the cold water dye. So I'm going to spray along. All the way over this entire design. Remember, you can actually see that design coming through. You can see where that's coming. Then I'm going to spray the bottom half with cold water. And the reason why we hang it up is we want this dye to hang and run down so that it'll run into the shirt. We'd let that dry and then we do the other side. Move that to the side. and I'll show you one. This is one that's dried overnight, and then we're going to throw it in some cool water, and what that will do is dissolve away all of the glue. All of this glue will come off in cold water, so any place we have a glue mark, any leftover paper that was left inside will also be removed and come off, and we're going to be left with the batik design. So if we come over here to the finished one, you can see how the colors have run down in. Everything that we covered with glue is now showing in white. I have another one to show you too. We've taken the same thing, taken a piece of interfacing, put the pattern behind again just in the same way, and sprayed it, this one with red. But we also added some dots in here so that there would be a variegated look, kind of looking like a batik. Then you can take this, add some thread. This would be a great patch to put on the back of your jacket or on another piece of clothing. So that's the great way you can actually do batik using glue. Today's basic lesson is all about Styrofoam. Styrofoam is such a great medium to work with. It comes in all shapes and sizes, it's lightweight, and it's so easy to use. Let me tell you some of the things you can do. First of all, you can cut Styrofoam. It comes in sheets or different shapes. Now, if you're going to use a cutter, make sure you have adult supervision. But this cutter will slice right through it. It's actually heated, and it will cut right into the Styrofoam, if you can see that cut. Another thing you can do is use a Styrofoam cutter, and I'll just turn that on, and it has a wire that vibrates, and again, we can cut right through this shape and pop it right out. Turn that off. Another way to cut Styrofoam is to use a cookie cutter, and you need a metal cookie cutter. You can just press it in, push it down into the surface, and press all the way down until you can pop away the other pieces around it. Just like that. Another way to cut Styrofoam, or a basic way, is to take a plastic knife. Rub it on a candle, that will make it easier to cut, and then you can cut any shape. Also, you can see I put a piece of felt, or you could put a towel or a non-stick mat underneath, just to hold it in place while you're cutting, and pop it right out. Now, when you get to this point, if you don't have a perfect cut, one of the neat things about Styrofoam is our next point, which is sanding. It's self-sanding. You can use one piece to sand off any rough edges until you have a perfectly smooth surface. Another real key point is when you're cutting a round ball or something that's large like this, use rubber bands, then mark it with a pen or a pencil, and you can get a perfect diameter. So we covered cutting and sanding. Next thing is shaping. Styrofoam will actually shape because it's so soft. You can roll it on a countertop to round off the edges, just like that. Or on an egg, you can flatten out the top if you need to attach something. So it's great to shape. Now you can glue it or attach it. Some ways to glue or attach are to use a chenille stem. Just poke one end in. You can put a dab of glue there if you'd like, and add a second. You can actually go right through depending on how thick. Another way to attach pieces of Styrofoam is to use a toothpick. You can use the whole toothpick or just break off a small portion to attach them together. Now, another way to glue is to use a hot glue gun. Again, make sure you have adult supervision, but you can get a really nice tight bond. Now, the last way to attach Styrofoam is using glue. One of the key points when you're gluing Styrofoam to Styrofoam is to put glue on both sides. So we'll put some on that side and on the section that we want to glue it to. And then let that glue set up for a little bit. It actually should be a little tacky. Then apply it and let it dry thoroughly before you paint or do anything else to it. Now, we're moving on to painting. To paint Styrofoam, it has all these little nooks and crannies, so I like to use a very stiff brush, maybe a stencil brush. I'm going to poke it in my acrylic paint. As you can see, I have a scrap of Styrofoam here to hold it in place and a toothpick. And I'm just going to dab that paint in until I get into all the areas. And an aerosol paint is a nice way to paint Styrofoam too. Now I've used it on a piece of scrap styrofoam here. Also, if you're using a large piece like this, hold it in a bowl, paint the top portion, and then let it dry, and then turn it, and you can paint that way so that it's not rolling. Now another thing you can do with styrofoam is texture it. On this example here, I've painted it with acrylic paint, and then I've sprinkled glitter over the top. That would be great for making fruit or an ornament. Another example is here. I've taken sand. This one happens to have glitter in it, or it could be plain sand. I'm going to put glue all the way around the styrofoam and then roll it in the sand. And I just want to brush this until it's nice and smooth, either using the top of my glue, or I could even use a brush, and then we'll just drop that in. Now the last way of texturing is clay. This is actually covered with an air-dried clay, and then I've rolled it on a texture plate to get that texture. So it's all dried and it makes a solid piece. You can also use all sorts of commercial texture mediums. Stucco or gesso all work equally well. So that's our basic lesson on styrofoam.
This lesson is all about floating. Floating is a technique that acrylic painters use. They use it to layer paint and to create shading and highlighting, as you can see on these samples. On this circle, all of this dark blue to make the shadow area was floated, as was the light blue on this side. On the leaf, dark was applied here as a float, light on this end, and even the little edge was done as a float. How do you float? Well, you always use a flat brush or an angle brush. You wet it first, take a lot of that water out, not all of it, but you just want a damp brush. You side load. Side load means only part of that brush is covered. The other half is clear and it's moist. I'm going to palette blend. Palette blend means you're forcing that paint through the bristles to get it just a little bit blended into the water. And then I'm going to apply it to my surface. I'm going to force that paint down and make a float. A float goes from a hard edge to fade away into water. Let me show you that once more. I'm going to moisten my brush, pat a lot of the water out, side load. Remember, that's only part of your brush. It's essential that that one side stays clean. I'm going to palette blend. And notice I'm palette blending in the same spot. That's so I don't have paint all over my palette paper and I lose less paint doing that. And I'll apply it to my piece. Forcing that paint down. I can go back and forth, but I always have that wet side down so that it blends from dark to medium to no paint at all on the water side. I'm going to show you one more trick. This is to fix a boo-boo. Notice I got my brush wet. Took a lot of it out on the paper towel. Side load, palette blend. And if I'm doing a big float, some days, you know, floats just don't go real well. And if it's kind of streaky, here's a fix-it trick. With a mop brush, a very soft mop brush, I can mop this to fix my float. So now, you not only know how to float, but how to fix it if you make a mistake.
The elephant is a symbol of one of our political parties. So for our national symbols, we're making the elephant, but look at all these other cute animals too. Here's what you'll need. We're starting out with various sizes of styrofoam balls, chenille stems. We have 2 shades of gray paint, 2 black eyes. We have a glue gun here ready. Make sure you have adult supervision. We have a few different brushes, a flat brush, a very stiff brush, a sponge brush, a candle, a plastic knife, and scissors. So let me tell you about the sizes. We have 1 6-inch ball, 1 3-inch ball, 2 2-inch balls, 4 1.5-inch balls, 1 1.25-inch ball, and 4 1-inch balls. Now you also see I have a scrap piece of styrofoam on the bottom, and that's what I'm holding those in with toothpicks so that I can paint. So the first thing I want to do is to create the head. I want to cut off the end right here. The way to do that is to run your plastic knife over an old candle, and then I'm going to saw off the end. That just makes it go through the styrofoam much easier. And I'm going to saw all the way through until I have a flat end. Now, if you don't have it exactly smooth, you can just lay it on your countertop and mold it, and that will give you a flat surface. Then I also want to cut these two 2-inch balls in half because those are going to be my feet. Now, once I have all my pieces, I have to paint them. And that's the reason I have this stiff brush. Because Styrofoam has all these little nooks and crannies, it's easier to paint if you use a stiff brush. You can also use a sponge brush. Let's start with the smaller pieces. I'm just going to dab my paint on, and you can see by having it in that scrap piece of Styrofoam and having the toothpick, I'm not going to get paint all over my hands, and I can go all over the shape. Now this step is going to take you a little time because you want to wait until these are dry, but you want to paint all of these pieces. Now you'd continue going through and keep poking that in until they're all totally covered. Now I'm going to set that aside because I have a whole set of pieces that have already been painted. Now our first piece is the 3-inch head with the end, and this has all been painted gray. Now I'm going to take a chenille stem, take my wire cutters, and I'm going to cut two 2-inch pieces off. What I want to do is have enough to attach this to my body. Slip those off, they don't have to be exact, and then I'm going to poke those into the Styrofoam. So I'm going to attach this onto the front, and because the chenille stems have wire in them, then I can attach my head very easily. So now my head is on. Let's put the eyes on while we're there. And I'm going to put the eyes just down a little bit here, and those poke right in. You can also add a drop of glue if you want to make sure to keep those secure. So we've got our body and our head together. Now the next thing we want to do is to create our legs. So we've taken the 2-inch half Styrofoam balls. I'm going to put another piece of 2-inch chenille stem, attach a 1-inch ball, and poke that down, and then attach another one here because that's what's going to be used to attach it to the body. I'm going to take my flat brush and I'm going to paint the feet on, or the toes. And I do that on all of them and put 3 toes on each. So now I've got my 4 legs that are all done and ready to go on. Now the next thing I want to do is I want to create my trunk. And I'm going to show you this with the white balls just so you can see. I have a longer Styrofoam stem. I'm going to poke it all the way through one 1-inch. Add the second 1-inch, and I'm sliding them on down because I want this trunk to be able to bend. So I'll continue doing that until I have the 3 and then the 1 1/4-inch ball all on one, and that becomes my trunk. Now I'm going to attach this into my elephant, and then I'll trim that off with my trimmers. And then his trunk will actually bend. Now I'm going to take my glue, or you could use a low-temp glue gun if you have some adult supervision. Put a bead of glue all the way around the edge of the ear, and then I'm going to bend a chenille stem, leaving a little tail at the end. Now this will take a little bit to dry, so I'm going to set that aside. Now I've got 2 that are all ready, and I've got them bent and ready to do. And then the only other part that I want to do is make his tail. I'm going to add a bead of glue down a 1-inch by about 4-inch strip of felt. Hold that together, and then I'll trim that just like here to make some fringe. You might want to put a clothespin on this to hold it down until that dries. I'll set that one aside. So let's get them all together. Okay, we have his head and his trunk, and let's add his legs. So it makes it so easy, and when you go back you can add some glue to hold these in and make it really secure once you're sure that you've got it in exactly the right spot. Add 2 here, add the other ones in the back, and add the last one here. And then the last step is to add his ears. which will go into the side here. Now let's look at our finished one, and you can see the placement on his ears. And then also turn around where we've poked the tail right into the back. And that's our finished elephant. For our last national symbol, we've taken the turkey. Now you might say, is that a national symbol? Actually, Ben Franklin wanted the turkey to be our national symbol, but instead the eagle was chosen. So we have a sample of each, but we're gonna make the turkey today. Here's what you need. We have 6 ovals and 1 large teardrop in a wood shape, different colors of plastic lacing, an empty Jell-O box, wiggle eyes, paint markers. We have both red and brown acrylic paint, our school glue, and then our basic tools. We have masking tape, scissors, a hole punch, and some flat brushes. So the first thing we want to do is to take our Jell-O box, carton, and I'm going to cut the top off and the sides. And that's going to be the base of our turkey. Then I'm going to take my flat brush and paint a heavy coat of brown paint. What you may find is that you'll do 1 coat and then let that dry and go back and do a second coat. I'll set this aside because I have 1 done. Now I also want to paint the tail feathers, and I have a good tip for you. If you take masking tape, roll it over your hand, and apply it to a scrap piece of paper, and then put your wood shapes down on it, it makes them really easy to paint. So I'm going to paint 2 brown, and if you want, you can let these dry, then turn them over and paint the other side. And then I'm also going to paint this one red on the top half, and then I would take some yellow paint to do the bottom half. So I'm going to paint 2 brown, 2 red, and 2 yellow on the oval shape, and then the teardrop is going to be half red and half yellow. Now you let these dry, and I've got some here that are all dry. Now the next thing I want to do is outline, so I'm going to take a paint marker. Don't be concerned about making it too straight. It actually looks better with a wavy line. So I'm going to go around, bring it back, and outline all of the areas. Then I'm going to come all the way around. And make sure, don't put your hand in the wet spot because it will smudge. Let that one dry. Now to make his face, I'm going to also attach my wiggly eyes. And I'll just use a dab of glue. And I always find it's easier to put the glue down first and then drop the eye down on top since they're small. And we'll make those a little off center. So there's his head. Then we're going to do the same and outline each one of the feathers. So I'll just go around with my marker. Let's move that glue out of our way. Then I'm also going to take my box and outline around the edge of that as well. And you go all the way around. Now I've got all my pieces and parts ready. Now it's time to assemble. I've also cut 4 strips 12 inches long of different colors of plastic lacing, and I'm just going to twist those together. I'll make a knot at one end, and slide that through, and then just do a quick twist all the way down and then tie a knot at the other end, which I've already done here. Now I'm going to take my box, take my hole punch, and make a hole on either side. Slide that in. And attach my lacing. Attach this one, and that'll slide right through here on the hole. And then I'll pull my knot through. If I need to cut my knot or make it a little bit smaller, I can. I'll slide that right in, and the other one will be here. This would make a great treat bag. Now it's time to assemble all the rest. So I'm going to take this, which is all dry, assemble him on the front. You're going to let your glue set for a little bit. Now I'm going to turn this over, and I'm going to put dabs of glue. Remember putting the black outline to the front. I'm alternating colors. Put 3 here, 4 and then 2 down the sides. As you can see, look on this one right here, I have all of my feathers going around the edge and our handle on. And let's take a look at the finished one. We have a turkey and an eagle. I think the story of the eagle versus the turkey is a pretty interesting fact about the United States. Here's a sneak preview of our next program. Hands On explores music, sound, and musical notes in crafts next time on Hands On.
Projects and ideas for today's show are available on the web at craftsforkids.com. This show is number 1011. Hands On is sponsored in part by Elmer's Products, Inc., manufacturers of a variety of adhesives, arts and crafts, and office products for use at home, school, or business for over 60 years. www.elmers.com.